Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm president of the FPCJ. My name is Kodama, and I'll be moderating this session, which will be a briefing by Mayor Matsui of Hiroshima. We'd like to start the online press briefing. It'll be soon 76 years after the bomb has been dropped in Hiroshima. A considerable amount of time has elapsed, but the nuclear situation around the world is such that we must admit that the road ahead is still very long until the realization of Hiroshima's dream of abolishing the nuclear weapons. It'll be 1 month until the atomic bomb peace memorial ceremony. What will be the message conveyed to the world from this ceremony? The online briefing from Hiroshima. In the first part, we will have a briefing by Mayor Kazumi Matsui of Hiroshima, top administrator. And in the second part, we will have two atomic bomb survivors, Ms. Keiko Ogura and Mr. Fumiaki Kajiya, who will be outlining their thoughts. In the first part, we'll have Mayor Kazumi Matsui, and we'll have him speak for 25 minutes. And we'd like to use the remaining time for Q&A. As for questions, due to limitations in time in the first part, we will only entertain questions which have been entered in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen. Now, you will not be able to raise your hand to ask questions. We ask for your kind understanding, and you can write your questions in the Q&A section as soon as the briefing starts. As for the material for today's presentations, we have sent you a URL about an hour ago, and you'll be able to download the material. We will not be showing material and sharing material during the briefing. So for those of you that don't have the material, please indicate in the Q&A. The two speakers for first session and the second session will be speaking in Japanese. Simultaneous interpreting will be provided by Yuri Yoshikuni and Noriko Satomori from Simul International Inc. As the mayor of Hiroshima, the atomic bomb site, it is with a very strong resolve that he's working toward the realization of eternal world peace. Next year, there'll be the first meeting of state parties to the TPNW, and he will be attending as the president of the Mayors of Peace, the NGO. So over to you, sir. The floor is yours, Mayor Matsui. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kazumi Matsui, Mayor of Hiroshima. I'd like to talk about our approaches toward peace, and I hope that you will pass this information on about our initiatives in your respective countries. Please turn to page 1. There's a law that is applicable to our city alone, and this is the Hiroshima Peace Memorial City Construction Law. 76 years ago, on August 6th, one atomic bomb exploded and caused the death of 140,000 people by the end of December of that year. And the whole of Japan was struggling, so the recovery was very difficult. So there had to be a legal basis for special assistance to Hiroshima. And 4 years after the dropping of the bomb in 1949, in accordance to Article 95 of the Japanese Constitution, the Hiroshima Peace Memorial City Construction Law was enacted. And this is a law applicable to Hiroshima alone. And based on this law, what is symbolic of eternal peace to become the peace memorial city is what we're aiming at. To complete the rebuilding of the peace memorial law is obligatory on the part of the mayor. And based on this as the ideal image of the city, we're trying to create a city abundant with a climate for peace. And we're trying to realize this. Please turn to the next page. With regard to peace building, this was the wishes of the people who have experienced the bomb. And we want to make this the wish of the people of the world. The facts regarding the damage is something that we're trying to convey, and that is what we're working on. in terms of preserving the facts regarding the experience. We're preserving buildings and we're preserving trees. And we are collecting material as well as testimony in order to disseminate the facts regarding the atomic bombing, the spirit of Hiroshima, wishing peace, so that this could be shared with the people of the world, the policymakers of the world, and to as many people of the world that we want them to visit the site, and we're attracting international conferences. And 165 countries, over 8,000 cities that belong to the Mayors for Peace. And we're working with the member countries and working towards solidarity to realize this in order to convey the facts regarding a nuclear experience. Every year I read out the Peace Declaration at the anniversary day of the atomic bombing. And we have also asked people to talk about their experience. And concerning this going forward, the young people that will be shouldering the era, we are working on them so that they will take ownership. With regard to these three approaches, I'd like to speak in more detail and refer to the specifics. In order to preserve, we're preserving buildings and trees. Within a 5-kilometer radius of the hypocenter, there have been exposed buildings which remain. There are 86 buildings, including the atomic bomb dome. The exposed trees are those located within approximately a 2-kilometer radius from the hypocenter and still standing. And presently 160 trees are registered. With the A-bomb survivors advancing in age, we're on the cusp of the period when it will become difficult to communicate the facts. And there are buildings and trees which are silent witnesses to the A-bomb experience, and they are becoming increasingly important as existences. For this reason, we're assisting the preservation work of exposed buildings and implementing measures to have the arborists restore the vitality of the trees. Please turn to the next page. The atomic bomb. 160 meters from the hypocenter. And in the middle, there's aogiri, or the Japanese varnish tree. In terms of disseminating initiatives to disseminate, in 2014, NPDI has been held in Hiroshima. And in 2016, there was the G7 foreign ministers meeting. And in 2017, the UN Conference on Disarmament took place. They were all held in Hiroshima, and we had visits by VIPs of respective governments as well as officials of international organizations. In particular, the realization of the visit by former President of the United States, President Obama, in May of 2016, and His Holiness Pope Francis in November of 2019 to Hiroshima, and their communication of powerful messages from the site of the atomic bombing had a major impact on the world. That and the message of the hibakusha, those who experienced the bomb, that no one else should experience what they had, has been conveyed. So please turn to the next page.
Now, another pillar for efforts to disseminate is the Mayors for Peace. The Mayors for Peace was established in 1982 by the then mayor at the time, who called for the solidarity among cities for the abolition of nuclear weapons, with the aim to contribute to the realization of the permanent peace in the world at the United Nations Special Session on Disarmament. And it was registered in 1991 as an NGO in the United Nations Economic and Social Council. Today, the Mayors for Peace has developed into a global network of peace cities with more than 8,000 cities in 165 countries and regions around the world. And the city of Hiroshima is the president, and the 14 cities, including the city of Nagasaki, serve as the vice presidents. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, which came into effect in January this year, is going to be the guide for the citizens as a global trend for no more nuclear weapons. And for the purpose, we will work with those member cities of the Mayors for Peace to create an environment that encourages policymakers to free themselves from the nuclear deterrence and to change their policies towards the abolition of nuclear weapons. If you can move on to the next page, please. Minor efforts to convey, which I'd like to talk about the Peace Declaration, which is one of the most important initiatives. The Peace Declaration has become an important means for the A-bomb city of Hiroshima to promise its efforts to spread the wish for peace throughout the world. The declaration was read out for the first time by then Mayor Hamai at the first Peace Festival held on August 6, 1947, 2 years after the atomic bomb. According to Mayor Hamai, the Peace Festival was started by the awakening spirit and soul of the people of Hiroshima, including many hibakusha who were in a state of so-called emptiness, with not much to eat nor wear, in the city of Hiroshima, which was completely war-torn everywhere you looked. And the Peace Declaration was made at the Peace Memorial Ceremony, one of the central events of the Peace Festival, to proclaim the will of the people of Hiroshima to the entire world. And the successive mayors have made their peace declarations with their own aspirations. But I, ever since 2011, when I took office as a mayor, have been presenting to the world's policymakers and the civil society who elects them the principles of actions that are necessary to eliminate nuclear weapons and achieve lasting peace in the world, with the focus on conveying to them the reality of the atomic bombings and experiences of the hibakusha and the desire that no one else should have to go through what they did. 76 years have passed since atomic bombing, and the number of hibakusha who have shared their experiences of the bombing and stressed the inhumanity of nuclear weapons and the value of peace is decreasing every year. And as it is getting more and more difficult to make the people of the world realize the truth that a world war fought with the nuclear energy would mean the destruction of humankind and the end of civilization. And it is becoming more and more important to disseminate this experience to the people of the world, to pass it on to the next generation, and to make the desire for peace a common value of the civil society as a whole. I believe that the Peace Declaration must continue to be disseminated for this purpose. Now, the Peace Declaration is available on our website in 10 different languages. You can also watch a video with me reading it out loud in English on YouTube. So please take a look at your leisure. Please move on to the next page. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the inscription on the cenotaph for the atomic bomb victims in the Peace Memorial Park. There are words inscribed for us all, the entire humankind, to respond to the appeal of the hibakusha that no one else should go through what they did. And there are answers that to pledge for us. Let all the souls here rest in peace, for we shall not repeat the evil. This word. The gist of the inscription is that the victims of the A-bombs are enshrined not merely as victims of one nation or one race, but rather as a beacon for peace for the entire humankind, and that it is the people of the entire world who should pledge the anti-nuclear peace to the victims of the atomic bombings. And the word evil in the inscription does not refer to the action of one particular individual or one particular country, but rather to wars and the use of nuclear weapons committed by the entire humankind. At the root of this inscription is the idea that a world without war and nuclear weapons can be created not through the use of force, which creates a chain of hatred, but rather by repeating future-oriented dialogue and building trust. Hiroshima awaits you as a place where everyone in the world can accept the feelings of the hibakusha and begin to work together on the path towards the abolition of nuclear weapons and the realization of world peace. So I hope you will visit Hiroshima. Thank you for your attention. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Mayor Matsui. Until 11:15, as time allows, we'd like to be entertaining questions. As a moderator, I'd like to raise two questions very briefly. Earlier on, we've asked the reporters, if you have questions, please enter them in the Q&A section, and I will sort and organize the questions and communicate that to the mayor. The first question. This January, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons has come into effect, and Japan and other countries have not signed. And one of the reasons is the nuclear deterrence theory. And the mayor has coordinated with the Mayors for Peace NGO, and that you are working to change the environment to transform the policy. And so the policy makers to be liberated from the nuclear deterrence theory, what specific environment do you think is necessary? And in what way do you intend to create the environment to liberate people from the nuclear deterrence theory? Yes, thank you. Policymakers, in order to be freed from the nuclear deterrence theory, the policymakers themselves, with regard to the nuclear deterrence theory, must be aware of the value of this theory. They must be convinced that it's of no value, no meaning, and we need to create the conducive environment. The NP, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons has been enacted so as specific measures. The situation surrounding policy manufacturers has to be created. We have to create a relationship of trust between the countries. So specific negotiations will become policy. Different mechanisms have to be thought of by all persons involved. The policymakers of the nuclear states, how do we involve them and induce them into this situation? That is one of the major tasks. I personally feel that such attempts, initiatives, including Japanese policymakers of the world, must take ownership and the research results of the academicians has to be shared, and that has to be done, I feel. On the other hand, as initiatives on the part of the mayor, to create the foundation of the city society that elect the politicians. Their thinking has to be conveyed to the policy manufacturers, and I'd like to make efforts to do that. The policy makers are elected by the citizens, and their judgments regarding values are such that the policy makers are there to enact, administer, to realize the views of the people that elect them. And so they are very sensitive to their thinking. And so that the deterrence theory is meaningless. We have to create the situation where the voters think so, and we're thinking about how to make this possible. The Mayors for Peace is joined by many cities without force to create a safe environment for the citizens. Within an environment of peace, people must be able to live their daily lives in peace, and so there is no war and there's no killing. What is necessary to make this possible? The peace mindset, peace culture is something that people have to believe, and they have to create an environment where they can act with this in mind. As the creation of the environment at the city level, what we can do is so that people can share these values along with over 8,000 cities. And civil society belongs to different countries, but across borders and across different beliefs to create a world where people can live in peace. This is what we want to convince them of. And when people conduct activities that feeds into peace, I believe they will begin to feel the meaninglessness of the nuclear deterrence theory. And we want to create an environment where there will be a consensus on this. Thank you very much.
Next question. Next question about the reality of the A-bomb. You talked about the efforts to preserve, disseminate, and convey. So moving on to the next generation, I think it's quite difficult to pass it on to the next generation. It's easy to imagine that. On this point, your own initiatives as a mayor, what you have worked on, if you can share them with us, and how do you feel the achievement of that so-called internet generation has been there for some time, and to share the reality of the atomic bomb to the younger generation and encourage them to act for the world peace. Maybe it's getting even more difficult than ever. And how are you going to realize that? And as the online classrooms are becoming a norm nowadays, do you think you're getting more interest from the younger generation compared to before? If you can share your thoughts. Thank you. Actually, about the reality of the A-bomb, my own mother is a hibakusha, and I'm the second generation of hibakusha. And as a matter of fact, about this A-bomb, I've never been told by my family at all, almost. Rather, based on my own experiences in schools, in the education, the reality of the A-bomb, and by visiting the memorial museum, I got to learn the reality and learned, well, this is what my mother went through. That's how I learned. And through that, I began to be aware of this issue as the A-bomb. That's how I developed my aspirations. So either way, based on my own experiences like that, to find out the facts, and by so doing, my own will started to be developed. Should that ever be happening again? So because of my experience based on this, even after I became a mayor, and to share the reality and to make sure to preserve the evidences and materials to pass on the reality, I've been working on that myself. So to really understand the facts is really important. And based on that, as you mentioned, there's information means. Through the means, I think there are more and more means for younger generation to gain more knowledge. So there's lots of opportunities for them to get more information. So using those opportunities to learn about the reality of the A-bomb, it's possible, but the issue is, well, after that, what they learned, what they found out, whether that could be translated into their day-to-day activities. I'm not talking about them going to any kind of movement, but in their day-to-day lives to act on something so that it will not lead to war, that will lead to the world peace, if you can think of them. And in the policy making, when you elect the policy makers, please elect someone who will represent that will. So I hope that will be the path going forward. So that kind of awakening, I think, I'm starting to see that among the younger generation, but not necessarily sufficiently. And there are lots of means to get information, but the information may not necessarily be accurate in some cases. So fact finding is very critical. And based on those facts, the day-to-day activities and behaviors need to be made into the right path. And I think my job is to support that as a mayor and as a city to create the peace culture. That's a slogan targeting the younger generation through our various initiatives. So I'd like to enhance our support initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There have been several questions submitted, so I'd like to sort them out. And I may be summarizing some questions. They may become short. Please understand. The first question is from Ms. Eleonora Shumiroa from the Russian National News Agency. The point is the following. Due to COVID-19, the pandemic occurred and many people find themselves under the scourge of the COVID, and they draw a comparison between this and the war. And many countries are taking their own respective members. There are those who have taken very draconian measures, and some countries not so draconian. And so I feel that the solidarity is not necessarily sufficient. And the Tokyo Olympic Games will be held. This is bringing about a polarization of the views of the world. The Tokyo Olympics, as is the case with Hiroshima, will it become a symbol of Japan, or will it be just will deviate people's thinking from the COVID issue, distracting countries under the pandemic with regard to the respective countries' response? In what you just read, economic control and the prevention of infection, how to strike a balance between the two. The respective countries are taking diverse measures, different measures, but I feel that the respective countries must work together and commonly on the following: vaccination, the most effective means to create immunity in many people. That is the important point. Amidst such a situation, to unite under the same concept, I think is very important. The polarization, there is some of that indeed, but in areas where we can unite, we should focus on that and help each other. And that, I believe, will lead to peace by creating such a world. With regard to the Tokyo Games, in the case of Hiroshima, 76 years ago, one atomic bomb was brought about destruction, but with many cooperating, there was a reconstruction. So Hiroshima is a symbol that symbolizes reconstruction. I believe Hiroshima has become such a city, and I believe Hiroshima is a city that represents peace. Now, the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games, IOC itself says that the games are such that it's a peaceful promotion of a peaceful society that emphasizes the dignity of mankind, and that is what the aim of this is. And I believe that the Tokyo Games would be as such. And as to the method of convening and as to the actual procedures, we have to be creative about this. The government and the organizing committee are mentioning different points, but it becoming a symbol of reconstruction in various forms. They're giving, throwing out themes to draw attention to conduct their activities. But I feel that the different evaluation, as an entity for administering the games, this is an attempt to try to have the people understand. And it's not for me to make the judgment as to whether this is good or bad. Having said that, that Hiroshima is a symbol, and the convening of the games, I believe, is slightly different in terms of nuance. Concerning this, and the evaluation of this is something that is hard for me to do, and I cannot do that. Thank you.
Next question from Maria Muguchi from AP. The question is as follows. It is reported by the press that Mr. Bach of IOC is going to visit Hiroshima on the 16th of July to pray for peace. So in the United States, they adopted the Olympics ceasefire resolution in line with that day. To appeal the peace through the sports and Olympics is his intention. So the visit by Mr. Bach, how do you take that as a mayor? So in my earlier talk, as I mentioned, our hope to seek for the world peace through finding out the reality of the A-bomb and to the entire world we will welcome everyone from the world to visit Hiroshima. As part of that, policymakers who have a control of the nuclear weapons, I'd like to welcome them more than anyone. So as such, Mr. Bach, through Olympics, can have influence to the civil society through the Olympics. Therefore, we as a city to welcome visitors, having Mr. Bach in Hiroshima and to feel and experience the reality of A-bomb himself and in his own words to disseminate the message and to feel the Hiroshima spirit. And I hope it will be a help for him to communicate to the rest of the world.
Thank you very much. The next question from Bangladesh. Protom Alo is the media. Mr. Monazur Haq is the questioner. Very briefly, about COVID-19 and the Hibakusha suffering as a result of COVID-19. What is the extent of the suffering by atomic bomb survivors? The atomic bomb survivors, are they suffering as a result of COVID-19? The degree and the extent of this is what he would like to know. And also in Hiroshima, to these vulnerable groups, are there special measures being taken to protect this vulnerable group? That is all, thank you. Under COVID-19, with regard to assistance to the citizens, we don't take any special measures for hibakushas alone. The hibakusha are such that the average age is over 80. They belong to the senior citizens group. And with the advancement of age, there's a lowering of physical functions. And they are easily inflicted with different diseases. And so to these people, we provide assistance. And as a part of this, we target the hibakusha in a detailed and thorough way. And we have created a structure for this. There is nothing special for the hibakusha or the atomic bomb survivors. It's the same as what we do for the senior citizens when it comes to COVID-19. Thank you.
So another question, I think this will be the last question if there are no further questions. So from China, Hankyu Jiho, Ms. Son Shubin. In order to convey the experiences of Hiroshima, how have you developed your activities in the international society? And what kind of activities have you rolled out in the international community, especially in China? On the damages of A-bomb, the nuclear weapons, and to share your experiences in Hiroshima in China. Have you done anything in China specifically? And how about the rest of Asia beyond China? That's the question. So vis-a-vis China, the city of Hiroshima, we have a sister relationship with 6 cities around the world, and one of them is Chongqing. We have a sister city relationship, and the culture and the tradition of China to be shared with Hiroshima. We assign a Chongqing Day every year to exchange with them, so that our thoughts can be shared with those cities. Cities is what we are working on, we've been working on, but the issue is because of the bilateral country-to-country issue, especially with the Asian countries at the government level, because of the recent historical facts, this war, there are some people who point out that it's the result of the War Act that led to the atomic bomb in Hiroshima. But as a result of the war, rather than discussing that from that perspective, that it's the result of the work. But in order to avoid that, with the future-oriented thoughts, the civil society should learn a lesson from the history and try to avoid that from that happening. That's the intention of our story. And at the city level, for the future-oriented efforts should be disseminated, and then work on the cultural activities. And I think that understanding is spreading steadily, but the government to government at the country level issue is quite deep at the root. I acknowledge that. So as I mentioned, at the citizens level, we like to accumulate the actual cases to make the better relationship, especially with the cities in Asian countries. I would like to work together with the cities who are the members of the Mayors for Peace.
We'd like to thank the mayor for having taken time out of his busy schedule. There is still 5 minutes remaining. We'd like to conclude. Are there any last messages from the mayor? If you have some words for the audience, if you have some concluding remarks, we'd like to end with those remarks. Thank you very much. I'm mayor of Hiroshima. I spoke in that capacity. The position of mayor is such that the city does not have the means, the military means, as the central government has. But we don't have this, but we are in a position to be able to promote understanding. So beyond the national boundary, for the peace of the citizens and for the safety of the citizens, we want to think about what is necessary. We want to accumulate our efforts so that the global level and nation-based conflicts and disputes can be mitigated. And if possible, we hope to go beyond that to realize a solidarity. And it is with these wishes that we perform our daily work. We hope that many will share thinking so that you could provide support to expand the circle of those who are trying to work toward the world peace. And if you could please communicate that to the world, please. Thank you very much, Mayor Matsui, for your attendance at this press briefing. It is our sincere gratitude which we would like to convey. And to housekeeping announcements, after this, starting 11:30, that's 20 minutes from now, we'll start the second part, and we will be hearing from the atomic bomb survivors, 2 of them. For those of you wishing to participate, please stay connected. And once again, we'd like to thank Mayor Matsui for taking time out of his busy schedule. Thank you to you. Thank you.